Good morning.
Okay, recording in progress. That's a little scary. Do we have to have that in progress? Just kidding. Okay. Hey guys, I'm Sheila Huffmeyer, President TNSA. Today we're going to be trying to just walk through the new draft language for the general construction permit. This was released recently, and we have to have our comments back in, I think, by the end of this month. Is that correct?
July 8th, I believe.
July 8th. Okay. So
July 9th or 8th. Okay.
We're trying to get comments put together by July 8th. Charlene's going to be out of town then, so I'll probably be compiling those comments and sending it back to TDEC on behalf of our membership. Charlie, can you mute Nathan? And others who are, John's not muted. Let's see, mute him. Try to mute some people. Okay. If you guys can keep muted unless you're talking, that would be awesome. It gets feedback and everybody else kind of gets, it sounds wonky. So we're trying to just walk through this today for those who haven't had time to look at it. I know we're all slammed, so we thought maybe if we just crunch through a couple hours and come up with our comments, we can send those back to TDEC. And everybody can also get some education on what the new language is going to look like. I'm going to start. I did sections 1 and 2. Warren Garrett is going to do 3 and 4. I'm going to keep my screen shared and scroll through for Warren. And then Paul Davis will take over and do section 5. And then Tom Lawrence is going to hop on the call later, and he's going to do 6 and 7. Our biggest concerns are in section 5. So Paul's pretty much going to do, I told him he had most of the show. So I'm going to kind of really quickly go through 1 and 2. Warren's is pretty quick and easy too, because it wasn't too many major changes on those. If you have any questions, you can put them in chat. Charlene is going to manage the chat, because when you're sharing screen and presenting on this, sometimes it's hard to also view the chat. Or if somebody unmutes and stops me and says, hey, we need to stop and chat about this, that's fine too. It won't bother me at all. So as we walk through this, you'll see we've made up red lines. So I have mark throughs and additions for each section 1 through 9. So if anybody wants that, we can probably put those somewhere. Charlene will tell us how to do that. We can put those, so if you want to go back after the fact and look at the markups, that way you don't have to mark them up yourself. We've already done it and looked at what was deleted and what was added. So as we walk through this, you'll see strike throughs. Some of us are going to use the mark through version, and some of us are going to use the new permit language. It's the same thing. I just took and copied in the new permit language and strike through the old language. So if it looks like it's about the same, that means the language really didn't change a whole lot for these sections. Are there any questions before we get started? Like I said, I can't really see them if there are. Charlie, you'll have to tell me.
No questions so far. No chat.
Okay, great. So good morning, wake up, here we go. I hope everybody's had like 5 cups of coffee, because this stuff can really, we have to make it exciting, I guess. I don't know. So as I scroll through this, there's really not a whole lot of changes to the first sections, other than they removed the part about the National Historic Register as one of the impacts. So it says limitations of coverage. So they just took that portion out. And then they clarified some of the TMDL language. I don't really have a issue with any of that. I think that was actually in the rationale. So what happens is we also have the original permit. We have the 2016 permit, and then we have the 2021 draft, and we have the 2021 rationale. So you should have gotten copies of the 2021 permit and the 2021 rationale and the information we sent out. If not, you can go grab that from TDEC's website. So that's pretty much what we're referencing. We're referencing the 2016, and we're referencing the new draft 2021, and any changes that may have occurred through the two. So these were just, like I said, I'm not really that concerned with some of these. They've just clarified some of the language on who's obtaining the permit, who's submitting, who's to submit, who's the NOI operators, And some of it's just clarification of language. So you can see if it, let's see, it's kind of on 2 different pages, but they just clarified who all of these entities would be and what's going with it. So it's not a drastic change, in my opinion, for anything in like section 1. And then you can see they just swapped, like permit tracking numbers was 1.5.2, now it's 1.5.1. So I didn't really have a whole lot of issues with anything that came in on section 1. Paul, did you have any concerns about changes in section 1?
Sorry, I was on mute. No, I don't, Sheila.
That's okay. So I'm just kind of back showing you guys there's not a whole lot. Fees, fee payments. It's just clarification on some of the stuff. And then actually you'll see they put a lot of new language in about the online system that they're using now and stuff too. So it clarified how to make payments and all that stuff too. So I mean, we're not really we're going to talk about the bulk of the permit that we see and deal with. So we're not that concerned about incidental language that TDEC was trying to fix. Let's see, section 2. Part 2 in the new permit is kind of a whole new section, and it's just clarification of who the operators are. Some people get confused as to whether they're the primary, whether they're the secondary, and who's who and who's doing what, and who can sign on and who can't. So I think TDEC tried to go back and clarify some of those questions that we get asked constantly, and I know they get asked constantly, and they're trying to clean that up. The part 2 is a whole new section on who the operators are, who the type of operator or construction operators are. So it's pretty straightforward. You've got owner developer of the project is the primary permittee, and then you kind of can go on. There's a site-wide permittee is the primary permittee, which we've all that's always been that way. It also says there may be other primary permittees for a project, but there's only one site-wide permittee. And then they kind of go on to clarify who the commercial builders are. Typically, that's the person going to come in in my opinion, probably going to build your structure or do other work on your property. So we have commercial builders that come in after your grading or your developer.
Sheila,
Yeah.
can you back up just that last paragraph before 2.1.1?
Right
Just
there.
remember that paragraph in section 5. It's a conflict on verbiage
The site-wide is the first primary permittee to apply.
about the co-permittees.
And there may be other primary permittees, but there's only one site-wide permittee. So when there are multiple operators associated with the same project, all operators are required to obtain a permit coverage. Once covered by a permit, all such operators are to be considered as co-permittees if their involvement in the construction activities affects the same project site and are held jointly and severally responsible for complying with the permit. So
Let me look this up real quick. Just while we're here, because I think that's going to be a conflict on their language.
in section 5.
In section 5, yeah, what Paul has. I made a note here. And I can just give you a reference.
Okay.
It'll be, and the way they numbered this is just very difficult. It's the sentence right above 5.5.3.11. Anyways, when you get to that, it says the initial primary permittee, such as a developer, is no longer required to inspect portions of the site that are covered by a subsequent primary permittee, such as a home builder. Well, that's direct conflict with what that paragraph's saying. Because I know currently on our projects, we hold them jointly, but if it comes down to push comes to shove, we hold the developer responsible. They're on the NOC.
I think whatever Warren just read probably just means to say secondary instead of primary. Right? Would that fix it? I'm sorry, I wasn't on that page that you read from, but like, just seems like a verbiage Like they mean to say secondary.
No,
You
I
wanted
don't
me to,
know, because on ours, they will release the developer if they have sold all of the lots, if they have sold that portion of it, carte blanche over to the home builder. Now, the developer no longer owns this whole section. They'll take them off and they'll put our home builders on as the primary permittee at that point.
all right, I have a question for you then. What happens to your detention ponds or your sediment basins that are still under the original land disturbance permit with outfalls
Yeah,
that are going to be converted over?
I think they still stay with the developer.
Exactly, but if you just released everything,
I think they
over to
just
the
release
board.
of sections. They like most all our stuff comes in sections. So they'll just release that particular area and the builder is responsible for that.
Exactly, but not over the entire site.
Right. Or the builders take all responsibility. So they have to, if I have issues with ponds and everything, then they'll have to do them. So
All right,
typically they don't want that though.
And
all right,
This is Paul.
just a question.
I'll say that the language in 211 looks like what we want. I mean, the agency wants to be certain who's responsible, and they want that responsible party to be in control of the controls. So we don't want a source under one permittee and the controls necessary for that source to be under someone else's control, or someone else's authority.
Maybe our comment just needs to be clarify on the
I think it's the title. The 211 language looks right to me, so it would be. I think it's the stuff Warren was reading from. I think he found she would like some improvement.
okay. Okay, so then we have commercial builders. May purchase the lot from the primary permittee to further structures, build in the buildings and portions. The site-wide permittee may transfer coverage to the commercial builder for the entire site or just the acreage lots the builder has purchased. So a lot of the commercial, they take the whole site because the developer is pretty much done at that point, and it becomes like Lowe's, or it becomes Walmart's, or it becomes like the big commercial guys. They'll take the whole thing because in the end it's their site. Or even small business, our small businesses here, they'll take it from if they had somebody developing it, and now they've taken the whole site. So it could go either way with the commercial builders, or it could just be the guy building the building. He may, and it just clarifies that they can transfer it to them and then they have the whole thing, or they may submit a new NOI for the acreage purchase, and they may hire the primary permittee or a lot owner to build a structure, or by mutual agreement, build both under the site-wide permittee. So that shows as a second, they've come in as a secondary permittee on the permit. Contractor is considered a secondary permittee. He has day-to-day operations. That could be your general contractor, your grading contractor, your erosion control contractor, your subcontractor for EPSCs, land disturbing, or commercial hired by the primary. I think it's good as they're trying to clarify who all these different people are that need to be signed on. Responsibilities of the operators. A permittee may meet one or more of the operational control components in the definition of operator. And so at the very end, there's a definition sections, but we're not going to go through the definitions today, but you could go back and look at those. Permittees with design control, permittee with operational control over construction plans and specifications at the construction sites. So those are the people who can modify the plans. The project specification that meets the minimum requirements of Part 5. The SWIP indicates the areas of the project where they have operational control. All of the permittees implementing and maintaining portions of the SWIP, all common BMPs, necessary for erosion control prevention, and all operators of the site have permit coverage if required and are compliant with the SWIP. So the parties with day-to-day operational control of the construction site have not been identified at the time the SWIP is developed. The permittee will with operational control shall be considered the responsible person until they get a supplemental NOI sent in. So then we have permittees with day-to-day operational control, permittees with day-to-day control activities to ensure the compliance of the SWIP. The SWIP, or like before, operation meets the requirements in 5. Project areas where they have operational control and measures of the SWIP are adequate. So the permittees with operational control over only a portion of a larger construction project are responsible for compliance with all applicable terms and conditions of the permit as it reads. So this just clarifies who some of the people, how I guess people would read the permit and they'd be like, well, TDEC, who am I? Well, how do I fall into this and which one am I? So to me, it looks like they've tried to clarify that. And that's all of part, I think that's all of part 2 that they added. Yeah, those are just my pages. Okay. Let me see if it'll let me go 3. Do you guys see 3 now? Warren,
Yeah,
do you see that?
Yeah, go ahead. Just on 3, just so everybody knows, because you've already looked at it, the number 3 has been transferred over to number 5 now. Section 5 is covering SWIP. So I think moving forward, other than section 4, everything's been moved around so much, it's almost like I had to go back and forth to find out what was going on and compare language. But pretty much strike out 3.1. It has been moved to 5, section 5. Now the new 3.1 is the NOI submittal. It's pretty much the same language. I had a question down at the bottom of the 3rd page. Some of their subsections are referring to 3.1.4. I don't know where 3.1.4 is unless that's the 4th paragraph of 3.1. Does anybody have any? And I've run across that in a couple of areas. I think it might be a typo. I don't know. But if we ever have to go back and cut and paste and reference something, I'd like to have the subsections in order.
I'm looking at a PDF. I'm not looking at this cool Word document that you're looking at with the track changes. My section 3.1.4 starts with new operators. New operators proposing to conduct construction activities at a site with existing coverage must blah, blah, blah.
Is that on the old permit?
No, I'm looking at the new one in a PDF form. Sorry if I've caused chaos with those comments.
All right, I'm missing something there. But anyway, that was if it's in there, that's fine. On 3.2, now is section 5.3 for the SWIP preparation and compliance. 3.2 now is format and content of the NOI form. Pretty much what we already went over with Sheila on section 2. Section 3.3 signature requirements has been moved, and I don't even think it's worded that anymore. It's been eliminated. That's also covered under section 2. 3.3 is now where and how to submit an application. I'm not finding a lot other than down at 3.5, components of the SWIP, and all SWIP is in section 5. So they've removed all of this and just relocated it. I didn't find any other issues in section 3 that raised the flag when I read through it. I don't know if anybody else found anything. And like I said, it was just reading through the language and not recognizing a difference. It's not like we had a lot of time really to review this stuff. So I wanted to just put comparisons between the 2 permits, or the proposal and the permit, so everybody had a marked up section. Does anybody have any comments on that?
No, but Jason's right. In the permit, 3.1.4 is new operators. So I think we're good on that one.
All right.
There were some other subsection things, but I think that one's okay.
All right.
Okay, let me get you 4 up. You ready for section 4, right, Warren?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm not trying to hurry everybody, but my daughter's in labor, and we just got a note that it may be a car baby. So
Jeez.
So anyways,
What?
yeah, her water broke about, I don't know, a half hour ago. And we had to drop my grandson off at daycare and then run to the hospital, but it sounds like they're not going to make it. So such is life. So anyways, I'm kind of excited with that, but I also want to cover this. So,
No.
I can't go to the hospital anyway. So I got time. I'm going to go get my grandson. But nonetheless, on number 4, this one was probably the best markup, I think, of the entire sections that they moved and relocated and so forth. It pretty much stayed the same with new languages. And they moved a couple of paragraphs. Down on the markup on number 5, minimize sediment discharges. This was also covered in section 5.5.3.6, just so you guys know that that's also, it's repetitive in section 5 as well. Right above that, 4.1.1 was an addition to the numeric under erosion prevention and sediment controls. It's just a subsection of its own. If I go to page 2, they did away with 4.1.2 and just put headers. So they added a couple words, V and wetlands. Now, wetlands, in my research, is an addition to wetland with available parameters for buffers, not unavailable. So if you guys read, are you reading the same thing?
Say that one more time, Warren. What do you?
It's
I've
that
never
they put
heard of
in that.
wetlands with available parameters.
Yeah, with available parameters.
What's an unavailable wetland? Jason, do you know?
No, there won't be an unavailable wetland, but there's going to be unavailable parameters. Yeah, it's just a 303D listing, right? And so this is saying, as long as you're not 303D listed, then this is the buffer that applies to you.
Is he trying to answer us, or is he accidentally unmuted?
Yeah, I'm sending that right.
Charlene, does he need to be muted, or is he trying to answer us? Oh, I think he needs to be muted. Sorry.
I got it muted.
Okay, I was like, it's okay if y'all haven't answered this, please chime in with the changes. The water.
I'm definitely not the smartest guy in the room, but I'm off of mute right now and had some coffee, so I'll jump up if you don't mind. And yeah, 4.1.2 just tells me that if you're unassessed or you have, they use this available parameters language. If it's just a normal stream, not high quality, not 303 impaired, whatever, then this is the buffer that applies to you. That same 30 and 15 gig. My little quip is, I wear a lot of different hats, right? I work for a lot of developers that are trying to get around A, B, and C, and I'm trying to maximize, profit margins for clients that aren't worried about the environment. But then I'm also an MS4, coordinator type cat too. And so, the environmentalist in me is not necessarily appreciative of the language in 4.1.2 that allows for the equivalent measures, because without calling out any jurisdiction or individuals from TDEC in my area, I have got a lot of streams in my area that have 5-foot buffers, and everybody's just kind of smiling, and the TDEC permit comes through and the local jurisdiction permit comes through, and everybody just is set with 5-foot, double row of silt fence type C, and I'll just go ahead and get within 2 feet of the top of the bank. And so I feel like the equivalent measures may or may not be in the best interest of everyone or the environment or, and sorry for over speaking. That's my 2 cents. Thanks.
So I think the biggest change on this was for me, because I had some questions on this and went back and forth with TDEC on whether or not a wetland that if it was in like the watershed of an impaired stream, did that wetland also have to have a 60-foot buffer? So I think they've just, and then under the definitions under the old permit, some people were like, well, it's not a stream, so I don't have to do it. And I was like, no, under the definition, any waters of the state, it said any waters of the state. So I had talked to, I think, Brandon Yates about it and maybe Bill Murph too. And had said, well, maybe it would be best if you clarify so that as these drawings come in, they realize that that wetland also needs to have a 30-foot buffer or a 60-foot buffer. So I think they've tried to clarify that, which is good.
Yeah, this is Jonathan from TDEC.
Hey,
And you and Jason are both correct. This 4.1.2 just added, it only applies to streams and wetlands with available parameters.
good. Okay.
The water
Okay.
quality buffer zone requirements in this section apply to all streams and wetlands with available parameters. For waters with unavailable parameters or exceptional intensity waters, see 6.4.2. We'll cover them in another section. And yes, you're exactly right. We just put and wetlands in there just for clarification. Legally, under the definitions of the state, a wetland that is waters of the state is a stream. But just for clarity's sake, we'll stick the word and wetland in there just to make sure everybody understands it.
Yes, thank you. I think
Good enough.
we did that, so that's great. Because I had people arguing with me saying it wasn't. I was like, yes, it is. So that's wonderful. Okay,
All
Warren.
right, we'll move forward then. Thank you. That clarified it. Again, it's just improving language and adding words that were missing or better identifiers. So down below where they added the sentence and read it, if obtaining permit coverage, they actually didn't add that. If you go down 2 paragraphs, that was just moved up 2 paragraphs. That was just relocated. So what's struck out below, to go down 1 more page, at the top of that page, that language was moved up.
Right.
And it's in red. So that was just relocation of language. Now what's in red at the bottom there, Sheila, right behind that strikeout, you see the comment, the second comment?
Yes.
That sentence was actually moved up above also, reword, or I don't mean moved up. It's reworded of the previous sentence. So that very last sentence of the strikeout is the same sentence, just reworded.
Okay.
So I just make people aware of that. I think I did a good job on this as far as moving things around and fixing it. So on the next page at 4.1.3, that was deleted. Again, that's under section 5, but I can only find it in 1 sentence, and I'll let Paul cover that. But anyways, it sounds like that entire paragraph was pretty much reduced to 1 sentence, but that's what I was reading. Please, I'm not the smartest person either on this, so I'm just trying to read and negotiate through this.
Or in these items that you're looking at, things like soil stabilization and dewatering come right out of the national effluent guidelines for the construction and development activities. And so they've got to be in every state's permit. And that's where they come from. Even if they seem to be redundant with other parts of the permit, states tend to put them in just like they look here.
Okay. Yeah, it was just moved. I couldn't find the entire paragraph. So next one down was sediment and other pollutants. I like that they just clarified a little more, expanded on pollutants itself. And the same with the following sentence down below, not containing soaps or solvents, was more of a clarification of just other water. So I don't have an issue with that at all. The soil analysis paragraph at the very end, yeah, right there. Has this been deleted? Did you guys know? Or I know it was required only if there was a problem, but they could base their initial design on area soils. But I couldn't find soil analysis language anywhere else in the permit. So I just wanted to throw that out there. If you guys found it, that's fine. I could have referenced it, but I couldn't find it anywhere. So. But that's it for 4. Does anybody have any comments or questions? I think, like I said, that was one of the most straightforward sections that stayed pretty much the same, just with some language changes.
I think that's good, Warren. Thank you.
All right. I'll hand it over to Paul.
Okay, go get that grandbaby.
And I'm going to push the, am I unmuted? I'm going to push the share screen button if I can find it. Here it is. Portion of screen. And then I'm going to go stretch this. I'm going to move this over. Sheila, tell me what you can see.
Okay.
Sheila, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Tell me what you can see.
Oh, hang on. My screens jump around. I'm sorry.
Well,
I can see
Paul,
you
on the left.
going through the permit.
On the left, you got a PDF that looks like the one that I'm looking at, I think. And then on the right, I see a Word document at the top, TNSA report on part 5 of
Okay.
yada yada.
I'm going to move this one.
I'm going back to page 24 that's got 5 and 5.1.
We'll move this one over so it shows up a little bit better. So can you see 2 things side by each now, Jason?
Looks
Yes.
great. Probably exactly what you're going for.
Okay, good. All right. Well, good morning. There's some names on the call-in that I probably should recognize them, but I don't. And just introduction, I'm Paul Davis. I was with TNEC for a long time, and since 2012, I teach classes on stormwater program implementation across the country. I have a class tomorrow at 7:30, beginning at 7:30 my time, because it's in Pennsylvania. And the class will be in Pennsylvania. I'll be here, but they're in Pennsylvania. And so I follow stormwater issues carefully. Chapter 5, as Sheila said, is the one that is of where I have most of my concerns with what's happened here. And so I'm going to go, oh, it looks like if I touch one, I better stay over here. Okay, I'm going to go through it this way. 5.1, general purpose, that's, I don't have I didn't find a significant issue there. 5.2, 5.2 now allows the use of templates for sites 5 acres and under. More than that has to have the licensed engineer or a landscape architect or a CPESC or level 2. That I don't want to make a judgment on that. I'd really rather leave that to the consulting engineering community or the people that have more experience with that. I'll simply say that the rationale didn't say why that was, how that's in the public interest or what the basis that the agency chose to do that. 5.3, how to keep up with changes. That's not an issue for me. 5.5, what has to be in the SWIP. Let me keep up over on this side. 5.5, what has to be in the SWIP. I don't see that 5.5.2 requiring 3 plan sheets. I note here that Dwayne Allen in Hendersonville made clear to me why a transition sheet is important. And we went out to a site that was having stormwater problems, and he said because they failed to do transition sheets. And so I have never done a class without mentioning Dwayne Allen and the importance of how's it going to be in between the start and the end. Okay, 552, 553.
Okay.
Okay. My first significant or major issue with this is 5533. And what this does is it says if the site operator chooses to have more than 50 acres disturbed at any one time, then here are some requirements that apply that don't apply otherwise. And those requirements include the site assessment that now applies to, not to every site, but applies much more broadly. The site assessment, when I'm talking to other states, I tell them that Tennessee has every state has something that's best, and every state has something that really should be better. The two things that Tennessee's permit has going for it, the best two parts of Tennessee's permit, are the twice a week inspection and the requirement that an expert with design expertise come out to the most important of sites within 30 days of startup and say, yeah, you know what? That's pretty much what we had in mind. Or, hey, wait a minute, you didn't get it. This was supposed to have been done this way. And now what's happened is that's been dropped essentially to sites that will choose to have disturbance of over 50 acres at any one time. Previously, a linear project, like TDOT's building a road, a linear project could have over 50 acres, one place or another over the length of the project without, and they can still be covered. But a project that's at one large site who chose to have over 50 acres exposed at any one time, disturbed at any one time, would have had to go through an individual permit process. That's now changed. The rationale simply says that it's been changed. The rationale doesn't give a rationale of why, it doesn't explain the agency's basis for doing that. And the purpose of a rationale sheet is to say, here are the change, here's what we're doing, and here's why we're doing it. This rationale sheet fails to do that. And for that reason, it really has, the agency really has to start over and issue a draft with a rationale that says, here are the changes we're making and why we're making them. The site assessment, as I've said here in my notes, having that expert on site is protected. It would be best if the same designer went out there and looked at the site, because the same design, the author always knows what they meant to say. The same designer knows what they intended to say, and it's good. That advantage accrues to us a couple of ways. One way is they can find mistakes, but the other thing is that designer is going to do another design tomorrow. And the experience that they get today looking at, well, I drew it up this way and here's what they built. So when I draw it up tomorrow, I need to know how that miscommunication happened, and I need to keep that. I need to incorporate that into my thinking when I'm doing my subsequent planning. And so disconnecting that is a mistake if your objective is clean water, and it needs to be reversed. The rationale is deceptive, and the process has to start over. Let me go on down.
So again, the QASA, I mean, I'm not finding the definition in it right this second, but you're suggesting that the QASA is only required for projects exceeding 50 acres. I think the permit that we're operating under today, I believe it says shall not exceed 50 acres of disturbance, and that's what kicks you over to the individual, right?
Right, Jason. There are two things going on. One is the new permit will allow general permit coverage for everything that's built in Tennessee. But for those sites that disturb over 50, they're not linear and that disturb over 50 acres, it will keep some of the protections from the old permit that are lost otherwise.
I do think it's important for all the engineers on the line. They're paying attention here to really sit up and take notice of what Paul's pointing out here. Both the say it's greater than 5 acres that can be designed by a CPESC or a level 2. No offense to anyone, but why would we devalue that? And then the QASA requirement being pulled from anything that doesn't have a pond already. I mean, it seems, I don't know if backsliding is the right word, but it's just very interesting.
Well, backsliding is exactly the word. 5.3.4 stabilization practices. This is just curious. The language in the old permit says if any area that's presently disturbed, if you know you're not going to work it in 14 days, you're to immediately stabilize it. And immediately means pretty soon. That's what was in TDEC's 2016 permit. That's what's in the new permit that EPA has on notice, EPA's National Construction General Permit that only applies in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and New Mexico, and the territories and such. But that's what they've got. I'm teaching a class tomorrow in Pennsylvania. Their number is 4 days. But TDEC, again, with no explanation, has changed 14 days to approximately 2 weeks. Now, approximately 2 weeks is difficult to enforce. It's contrary to for those of you that have followed something called the remand rule of 2016, EPA is directed by the court to achieve these 3 objectives: clear, specific, and measurable. Going from 14 days to approximately 2 weeks makes this permit unenforceable. It wasn't explained in the rationale, so as far as I'm concerned, it's an unallowable oversight, and it just has to go back either to 14 or some other specific, something that's specific, something that when Jason gets out there, he can look at the calendar and see, and later there's the words 2 or 3 weeks are somewhere in this new draft. It's curious. Okay.
You're right, Paul. We have a hard enough time with enforcement of direct language. When we put stuff in there that's approximate, that's terrible for us. We can't even.
Sheila,
I'm not sure that, I think maybe the comment we would send back on this, unless other people have issues with that, would be to just remove any words that say approximate out of the permit.
Yeah, my comment is, whose idea was this?
I don't know.
And the agency owes us the answer to that question. Here's what we decided, here's who decided it, and here's why we decided it was a good idea.
Yeah.
If they can't do that, really, there's somebody that can.
Yeah. Approximate to a contractor can be 2 years.
Right.
They can come up with any excuse not to do it, trust me.
Yeah.
The wind was blowing, so I couldn't put straw down. I mean, you name it, they can come up with it. So that's really rough on us.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, this is Lori Saul. I just want to just kind of say, yeah, I agree. It's the first thing I was thinking is, how on earth am I supposed to enforce that? Yeah, it's challenging. You get, like Sheila said, arguments all the time. I'm trying to, oh, I drove a tractor over it, so now I have another 14 days. No, it's not how it works. So with this really weak, vague language, yeah, that's going to be incredibly hard to enforce. So I agree with you, Sheila. Anything that says approximately or anything like that, if they can go to something more well-defined would be much better for us.
All right. 5.5.3.5. The language that says how the Tennessee Erosion and Sediment Control Handbook is to be used is changed, and I would probably like to defer to others on that. It looked to me that in the 2016 version that there was more direct. You either got to do it like the handbook says, unless you've got a really good reason not to. And it looks to me now that you've got to, that it's, the handbook is an identified reference. And so I'd like for somebody else that is more familiar with actually doing the design to help me decide if that's a problem, to the extent to which that's an issue. Okay, and here's the other, where am I, 5.3.8, 9, and 10. Here's a part that I simply did not understand. Sediment structures treating drainage areas in excess of 25 acres at the bottom of page 34. I don't know if that's a restatement of what was in the existing permit or not. So I'd like for somebody to some better thinker to think through that. 6 and 7, not so much an issue. Inspections are the whole stormwater program depends on inspections. The simple, the Shams outline or the cliff notes of stormwater permits is have an expert identify the sources that need to be controlled and design controls for those sources, and have a qualified inspector keep an eye on it during the construction and make changes quickly to the extent that they're needed, and terminate out once you've met qualifications. That's the simple way to describe what's going on in stormwater regulation. And so the inspections are really, they're really key to any hope we have of compliance at stormwater sites. Tennessee, there may be other states with twice a week inspection. There are other states with once a week and after rainfall. So that's, that which could be more than twice a week, if depending on the weather. But I've taught my class in most of the states in the country, and I have not seen anybody else say 2 a week. But 2 a week has such advantage for us because you've got somebody that's more familiar with the site. A problem cannot have been, in theory, cannot have been there for more than 3 or 4 days without a qualified inspector, in theory, looking at it and somebody else talking.
Paul, this is Don.
I'm hearing the background. Excuse me, Don. I was just hearing some background.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And one other thing, I know it was in the last permit, but it's also in this permit. It allows inspectors, if you're a licensed engineer. So, what does that mean? Does a licensed engineer know exactly what to look for when they go do inspections? I think the language needs to be augmented to say that a licensed engineer or landscape architect who is qualified to do inspections.
Right. Well,
because
I agree with you, Don. I'll just say, I have an engineering license, and if I were to do work that I'm not qualified to do, like if I did electrical work or mechanical I would be, I could lose that license right away.
I don't think anywhere it says that they have to do I think this is backsliding in the amount of inspections, wasn't it?
Sure it is.
Twice a week. And now there's nothing in there about twice a week, is there? Not even for 50 acres, I don't think.
No, it is for over 50 acres. Over 50 acres disturbed at any one time.
It's twice a week. Okay.
Twice a week. And so what's happened is, well, I should leave it to the agency to explain what in the world that they were thinking. But what it looks like is it looks like a rollback. I mean, it is a rollback.
It is a rollback, yeah.
I mean, it's a rollback. At the end of this set of notes over on the right, I'm going to go through what was in the rationale, and we're going to see that it's a rollback that wasn't explained in the rationale. And so
Paul,
there's no getting around that this process has to start over.
Paul, it's Helen.
Hey, Helen. Hi, Helen.
Hey. So I don't have too much to add, but obviously we've had lots of conversations about inspections and frequency, and what it appears to me is that, and I'm sure most of our MS4 and inspectors will agree that what they were seeing was not a routine, every 72-hour inspection. So, the bar was already falling and we're just continually lowering it. So for us, what we're probably going to see now is no inspections instead of maybe once every 2 weeks instead of twice a week. We'll probably see nothing now. It's just my thoughts.
Helen, program enforcement in Tennessee and everywhere. I mean, Tennessee is not better or worse than other states in this regard. Program enforcement it just isn't happening, and that's everybody on this call, everybody in the agency, and it's not fair, because I know that some of the builders that we have do a good job, and they're and that cost that's out of their pocket. And so if we're not even-handed in enforcement, really the incentive for them is, why bother? Why should I be doing this when my competition isn't? And of course we're unfaithful to our mission if we're not enforcing the rules. And that's my whole interest in this. But inspections going from once a week to 2 a week, the notes I've written here, I mean, here's the thing, stormwater, everybody's an inspector. If you can see through the windows, your car windows, you're an inspector. And we know everybody on this call knows what the incidence of non-compliance is. I have hundreds of photos in Tennessee of gross violation of water quality standards that were unenforced. The twice a week inspections are absolutely key. It might be that EPA will let us get away with dropping that back. Even so, the agency has to explain in the rationale why they think that this is consistent with mission to drop inspections. I mean, there was no mention in the rationale. I mean, we had TDEC staff on our TNSA quarterly calls within 2 or 3 weeks of the time this was announced. There was no mention of it. Somebody in the agency owes us a heart-to-heart on what's happened